Last summer, I took a break from teaching. I had just gotten out of a relationship and needed some time to clear my head. The woods near Lake Haven seemed like the perfect escape. I had camped there before, so I wasn't a total novice. I set up my tent in a secluded spot, the sun shining down, making everything feel peaceful. I was hopeful that this would help me recharge. I cooked some food and settled in for the night. Everything felt normal, or at least it did at the time. Around midnight I heard it, a cheerful whistling cutting through the cool night air. It was a simple tune, light and carefree. I thought it was another camper enjoying the night, but the whistling kept repeating. I listened carefully but heard no voices, no laughter. I started to feel uneasy. I crawled out of my tent, flashlight in hand. I shined the beam into the darkness. I didn't see anything, but the whistling continued. I should have felt scared, but I didn't. I was just curious. I went back inside my tent, my heart racing a bit. As I lay there, I could still hear the odd noises. I was sure I heard footsteps. They sounded like someone was pacing outside my camp. I tried to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Maybe it was an animal, but I felt like something was there. The next morning I decided to explore a bit. I needed a distraction. That's when I noticed strange markings on some trees. They looked like symbols I had never seen before. They gave me a chill, but I dismissed it, thinking maybe some local kids were messing around. I figured I'd stay close to camp. That night the whistling started again. Only this time it was louder and harsher. It felt wrong, like something was off. My stomach twisted. I sat in my tent, listening. Every time I heard the whistling, my skin crawled. The footsteps returned, growing louder. Even though I tried to tell myself I was fine, deep down, I was terrified. I decided to wake up early and pack my things. As I unzipped my tent, I froze. Right outside, I saw small stones arranged in a circle. They were right where I had set my campfire the night before. I had no idea what it meant. I took a few steps back, my heart pounding. Then I heard it again, someone whistling, and it was closer. I turned to leave, but as I did, I thought I saw a figure in the trees. I blinked hard. When I looked again, there was nothing there. I felt panic rising, but I had to get out. I packed everything quickly, not looking back. As I left the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I never went back to Lake Haven. Some things just feel wrong, and I've never forgotten that whistling. The months passed after that trip, and I tried to forget about Lake Haven. But every time I heard whistling, be it on the radio or from passing kids, it would send a chill down my spine. I avoided the woods and didn't think about camping again. Then one day, my friend Mark reached out. He wanted to plan a camping trip. I hesitated, but I didn't want to pass up the chance to reconnect after a rough year. I chose a different spot, one that felt safer and farther from Lake Haven, convinced I could keep the memories at bay. The first night was fine. We laughed around the campfire, sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. But as we settled in, the forest was quieter than I remembered. It felt eerie, like the trees were leaning in, listening to us. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a mistake by coming back into the woods, even if it wasn't Lake Haven. After the sun went down, we turned in for the night. I tried to sleep, but every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig made my heart race. Out of nowhere, I recalled the whistling, sharp and unnerving. I wanted to brush it off, but the memory came flooding back, and I lay wide awake, staring at the tent ceiling. Around midnight, I heard something. It was distant at first, but then it crept closer. A familiar whistling tune, just like when I was at Lake Haven. My stomach dropped. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat up, not wanting to disturb Mark. I listened intently, hoping it was just my imagination. Yet it wasn't. The whistling was real and intent on cutting through the night. I unzipped the flap of the tent, thinking maybe I could see a reflection of light or an outline of another camper. As I peeked outside, the air felt cold against my skin. The whistling was louder now, but as I scanned the darkness, I saw nothing. Just trees, standing tall like silent sentinels. I hesitated, my feet rooted to the ground. It was too quiet, almost like the woods were holding their breath. My eyes caught something on the ground near the campfire. I rubbed my eyes, thinking maybe I was seeing things. There, under a pale moonlight, were small stones arranged in the same circle I had seen at Lake Haven. Panic surged in me. I quickly retreated back into the tent. I could hear Mark shifting, mumbling something in his sleep. What could I tell him? I had to keep this to myself, for now. I closed my eyes, willing the whistling to stop, but instead, it grew louder, more aggressive, invading my thoughts. Then suddenly, at the peak of a high note, the whistling ceased. I held my breath, maybe it was finally over. But just as I thought that, I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving around our campsite. I nudged Mark awake. "Did you hear that?" He rubbed his eyes, still half asleep. "Hear what?" My heart raced at his calmness. "The whistling. It's back." Mark paused, listening. "It's probably just an animal." But I had heard what I heard. Fear tightened my throat. I needed to get out of there, but I didn't want to panic him. As I tried to gather my thoughts, that's when I noticed something through the tent flaps. A shadow, just beyond the circle of our light. I squinted and I froze. Someone was watching us. Someone was... My mind raced. I couldn't move. Was it real? I glanced at Mark, hoping he would see what I saw, but his eyes were still heavy with slumber. The shadow shifted, not just a trick of my imagination. It stood near the edge of our campsite, the outline indistinct but unmistakably human. "Mark," I whispered, urgency creeping into my voice. "Wake up." He stirred, rubbing his eyes as the tent trembled slightly with his movement. "What's wrong?" "Someone's out there. I saw a shadow." Mark's expression shifted from confusion to concern. Slowly, he leaned closer to the tent's entrance. "Are you sure? Maybe it's just a tree or something." I shook my head, fear bubbling in my chest. "No, it was a person, I swear." For a moment we both sat in silence, holding our breath, straining to hear something, anything that might confirm my fears. I wanted the whistle to return, to give me something to focus on other than that shimmering shape. But the only sound was the wind whispering through the trees. Mark finally took a breath and lifted the tent flap slightly, just enough to peek outside. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my ears. "What do you see?" I asked, panic lacing my words. Mark squinted into the darkness. "Nothing, it's just the trees. I think you're imagining things." Before I could respond, he pushed the flap up wider and crawled out. "I'll check it out," he said, his voice steady. "Wait, Mark, don't." But he was already gone, swallowed by the night. I crawled to the entrance, my fingers trembling as I gripped the fabric tight. The visibility was low, the campfire's light barely reaching beyond the few feet of safe ground. I should have felt more secure with Mark outside, but his calm demeanor only deepened my unease. "Mark?" I called, my voice hoarse. "Come back." No answer, just more silence, pressing in around me. After what felt like an eternity, I couldn't stay still any longer. I crawled out, heart racing. The air was heavy with anticipation, and I felt a lump in my throat. If something had happened to him. I took a step towards the fire pit, trying to breathe. "Mark!" I yelled again. Just beyond the flickering light, I saw his silhouette. He stood very still, facing away from me. I squinted, trying to read the tension in his posture. "What are you doing?" I asked, pleading for him to come back. He didn't move. Instead, he just stared into the woods as if he were entranced. "Mark!" Suddenly, he took a few steps into the darkness, inching toward the trees. My heart dropped. That shadow wasn't just a trick of the light. It was real, and standing right by him. Then I heard it again. The whistling, soft at first, but building into that chilling tune I thought I had escaped, echoed through the night, and then everything went dark. I blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden darkness. My heart raced. "Mark!" I shouted again, but my voice felt small, swallowed by the night. I couldn't see anything beyond the tiny circle of light from the dying campfire. Fear washed over me in waves. I pushed myself to crawl out, my hands brushing the cool ground. Just as I feared, Mark was gone. I staggered to my feet, feeling the weight of panic claw at my chest. "Mark!" I called, voice trembling. A crackle of twigs made me freeze. I turned toward the sound, squinting into the darkness. Shadows danced just beyond the light, making it impossible to tell if they were real or figments of my anxiety. "Stop playing around," I yelled, trying to sound braver than I felt. The whistling returned, clearer this time. It was coming from deeper in the woods. My instinct was to run in the opposite direction, but I couldn't leave Mark. I took a step, then another, my resolve hardening. "Mark," I called one more time, forcing my voice against the fear. I took a deep breath and plunged into the darkness, the sounds of the woods surrounding me. It felt alive, whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. I couldn't shake the chilling melody that floated through the air. The closer I got, the more it felt like something was pulling me, guiding me. I forced my legs to move, stumbling through the underbrush. "Mark!" I yelled again, desperation edging into my tone. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse, a shape moving swiftly between the trees. It wasn't Mark, but something else. My heart thudded in my chest. I paused, listening. The whistling stopped, leaving a suffocating silence. "Show yourself!" I shouted, anger overruling my fear for a moment. But there was nothing, just the whispers of the wind. That's when I saw it. A flash of white, a glimmer like eyes reflecting the light. My breath caught in my throat. I took a tentative step towards it, heart racing. "Mark?" I heard a choked sound. It was too low, too soft to be anything human. I crept forward, sweat sticking my shirt to my back. The darkness felt thicker now, almost alive, wrapping around me, holding me captive. "Please, if this is a joke," I began, but the words fell silent. I had no idea what I was dealing with. Suddenly the ground shifted under my feet. I lost my balance, and before I realized it, I was tumbling downwards, down a slope that I couldn't see. I landed with a thud, pain shooting through me. As I looked up, I saw the outline of a figure standing at the edge. It was tall and oddly humanoid. The whistling resumed and my heart dropped. I was trapped. The last thing I saw before the darkness overwhelmed me was that figure stepping forward, stepping into the light. The world spun back into focus with a jolt. My body ached and I struggled to move. I was on the ground, leaves sticking to my arms and dirt smudged on my face. Panic surged again as I blinked against the dim light filtering through the trees. "Mark?" I rasped, my voice a whisper. There was no response, just the eerie sound of the woods enveloping me. I pushed myself up, wincing as pain shot through my ankle. It felt twisted, hardly able to support my weight. I hobbled toward where I thought the figure had been, but the shadows had swallowed it whole. I scanned the trees, heart racing, desperate to catch a glimpse of Mark, or at the very least the creature I had seen moments before. The whistling began again, this time coming from all around me, overlapping like a haunting chorus. I clamped my hands over my ears, trying to block it out. It just grew louder, infusing every breath I took with dread. "Enough!" I shouted into the darkness, my voice breaking. I had to find Mark. He wouldn't just vanish. Taking a deep breath, I stumbled forward. The terrain was uneven, branches snagging at my clothes as I moved deeper into the woods. I regretted every step. The shadows loomed larger, and I felt a chill that crept under my skin. I focused on putting one foot in front of the other, but the whistling persisted, taunting me. Then I spotted something on the ground. I bent down and felt my heart skip. It was Mark's cap, the one he wore all the time. I recognized the worn fabric, the fade of color. He had to be close. "Mark!" I cried again, voice trembling. There was no answer, only the whistling that seemed to pulse with my heartbeat. Clutching the cap, I turned to retrace my steps. That's when I heard it, a low growling sound rumbling from somewhere behind me. I froze, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. It wasn't just an animal. It felt menacing. I spun around slowly, scanning the tree line, heart pounding in my chest. Shadows shifted, deeper and darker than before. The figure was back, lurking just out of reach, watching me. "Leave me alone," I shouted, adrenaline fueling my bravado. But instead of retreating, the growling intensified, echoing through the thicket. I backed away, glancing behind me, searching for a way out. Just then, a bright flash of light erupted from the treetops. I shielded my eyes instinctively. The whistling stopped abruptly. The light pulsed and I squinted into it. That's when I saw more shapes moving. Not just one, but several. They were closing in. My stomach dropped as panic swept over me like a cold wave. I turned to run, but the thicket snarled around me, branches clawing at my clothes. I stumbled, nearly losing my footing again, my ankles screaming in protest. As I struggled to regain my balance, I could hear voices now, faint yet unmistakable, whispering words I couldn't quite make out. And just as I thought I might escape, something brushed past me. A rush of air, rustling leaves. I spun around, terrified of what I would find, but the only thing that met my eyes was darkness. Then everything went silent. I stood still, heart hammering in my chest, the silence pressing in around me like a thick fog. Slowly, I let my hands drop to my sides. The fabric of Mark's cap clutched tightly in my fist. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, 1,000 eyes hidden behind the trees, waiting. I took a cautious step back, scanning the darkened woods for any sign of movement. The growling had faded, replaced by quiet rustling. I strained my ears, trying to catch any sound that might guide me, but all I heard was the pounding of my heart. "Mark!" I called louder this time. My voice echoed in the silence. I hated how small and helpless it sounded, even to my own ears. I leaned against a tree for support, my ankle throbbing in protest. The air felt thick, almost electric, as if the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I considered my options: stay put and hope Mark found me, or push deeper into the unknown. Before I could make a decision, I heard it again, the low growl, closer this time. I turned on my heel, ready to bolt, but something caught my eye. A flicker of light danced in the distance. I squinted, trying to figure out if it was real, or just my mind playing tricks. The light pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. It drew me in, almost against my will. Heart racing, I stepped away from the tree and began to move toward it, limping through the underbrush while keeping a wary eye on the shadows. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. With each step closer to the light, the whispers returned, softer now, like voices carried on the wind. I tried to make out the words, but they slipped away as quickly as they came. "Please, just show me," I begged into the dark. The whispers faded, replaced by a chilling stillness. As I reached the edge of a clearing, the light brightened to reveal a low, flickering flame, barely clinging to life. My breath hitched as I looked around. There, on the ground, lay scattered items: a flashlight, a water bottle, and something that made my stomach drop: Mark's jacket. I stumbled back, panic flooding me. The realization that he had been here perhaps moments ago made my skin prickle. I bent down, fingers trembling as I touched the jacket. It was warm, as if it had just been discarded. But where was Mark? Then, from behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps crunching on leaves, deliberate and slow. My heart raced anew as I glanced back over my shoulder. The shadows were shifting, and I felt the weight of presence closing in. I had no idea what was coming for me, but I knew, whatever it was not here to help. That's when I saw it emerge from the darkness. An outline, tall and menacing, with eyes that glared like embers. My breath caught as panic surged through me. I stumbled back, the clearing feeling smaller by the second, trapped in a nightmare I didn't know how to escape. Then the growling returned, and with it, the certainty that I was not leaving this place alone. I froze, my body screaming to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The figure in front of me shifted, the ember-like eyes narrowing as they darted from side to side. I grabbed Mark's jacket tighter, hoping it would give me some semblance of courage. "Mark!" I shouted again, desperation rising in my throat. My voice echoed off the trees, only to be swallowed by the darkness. The growl intensified, rumbling deep and low, a warning that sent chills racing down my spine. I glanced around, looking for a path, anything I could use to escape. The shadows around me twisted as the creature stepped forward into the dim light of the dying flame. It was massive, towering above me, with long limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. And then it spoke. Words I couldn't understand, but the tone was unmistakably menacing. Fear twisted in my stomach. I had no idea how to respond. It stopped, cocking its head to the side as if sizing me up. I struggled to think. Should I run? Fight? I took a tentative step back, and the creature mirrored my movement, closing the gap between us. Then I remembered the flashlight. I fumbled in the twigs and grass until my fingers found it, the plastic cool beneath my grip. I clicked it on, the beam cutting through the darkness. The creature flinched at the sudden light, and for a moment, I thought I saw something softer in its unyielding gaze. Hope flickered within me, but it was quickly snuffed out by the growl that rose again, low and threatening. I took a few shaky steps sideways, positioning myself toward the edge of the clearing, searching for an escape route. The shadows danced around me, and I could feel the weight of the forest pressing in. Was I being surrounded? The whispers returned, louder this time, flowing like a current through the air. "Run, leave, it's not safe." They were barely audible, but the urgency was clear. I felt the tension in my muscles coil, ready to spring into action. Then it happened. Everything shifted again. Without warning, a sharp snap echoed through the clearing, followed by a howl that pierced the night. The creature howled back, its voice a mix of fury and frustration that rattled the leaves overhead. I didn't wait for another second. I turned and ran. I weaved through the trees, the flashlight beam bobbing wildly in front of me. My heart raced, adrenaline surging through my veins as I pushed deeper into the woods. I couldn't hear the creature behind me anymore, but I didn't dare look back. Suddenly, the ground beneath me gave way. I gasped as I tumbled down a slope, branches and rocks tearing at my arms. When I finally came to a stop, the world around me was dark. The flashlight had slipped from my hand, blinking out in the fall. I lay there for a moment, trying to catch my breath, trying to process what just happened. Then I heard it, a low growl, this time closer. Panic shot through me. I couldn't see, couldn't escape if I didn't know where I was. That's when I noticed it. A faint glimmer. I could see it from the corner of my eye, just a few feet away. I reached out, grappling in the dark. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. A knife? I grasped it tight, realizing that whatever was coming for me, I had to be ready. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was only making things worse. My breath hitched as I clutched the knife, its handle slick against my palm. The growl was louder now, reverberating through the stillness, and I felt the weight of my heart pounding in my chest. I pressed myself against the cold ground, trying to be as invisible as possible. The darkness felt alive, crawling with unseen dangers. I strained my ears, listening for any signs of movement, any clue about how far away the creature was. I heard a rustle, something shifting in the underbrush, followed by a pause. My pulse quickened. Then, for a brief moment, silence enveloped the woods. I risked opening my mouth to call Mark again, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't want to lure whatever was hunting me straight to my position. The stillness shattered as a shrill whistle sliced through the night. It was unnatural, echoing eerily from deeper in the forest. It sent a jolt through me, the hairs on my neck standing on end. Was it the creature? Or something else? I thought about and hoped it was Mark, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whistling in these woods was a terrible idea. Then I heard it again, closer this time. The growl was replaced by a series of odd clicks and low huffs, almost like a conversation. The combination of sounds sent shivers racing down my spine. I tried to think, tried to weigh my options. Maybe I could run again. But just as I was about to make my move, I felt the thud of heavy footsteps not too far away. My heart stopped. I couldn't stay here. But if I moved, I risked being seen, and worse, caught. Thinking quickly, I pushed myself to my feet and gingerly made my way toward the source of that whistling, hoping it might lead me to safety. Each step was deliberate, testing the ground beneath me for stability. As I moved deeper into the shadows, I realized the whistling wasn't just random. It had a melody, as if it was drawing me in. I'm not alone. I muttered to myself, desperation rising. Maybe someone was out there, someone who could help. But another part of me screamed that I shouldn't trust it. My instincts were screaming at me to turn back. That's when a flash of light pierced through the darkness ahead. I squinted, trying to see. It wasn't the creature, at least not the one I had encountered before. This light flickered, shifting like a beacon. It was almost comforting, but I couldn't convince myself it was safe. I stepped closer, creeping toward the glow, ready to bolt if things went south again. The whistling continued, growing louder, mixing with a low chime that felt ancient. And then I saw it, the source of the light. A strange object was half buried in the ground, glowing with an otherworldly sheen. As I approached, my breath caught in my throat. The whistling stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence that felt like an omen. That's when I heard a voice, clear and sharp, cutting through the stillness. "You shouldn't have come here." My heart dropped, and I froze. I turned slowly, adrenaline flooding my body as dread settled in deep. Someone, or something, had been waiting for me after all. I turned slowly, scanning the dark trees for the voice's origin. There, illuminated by the faint glow of the object, stood a figure. It was cloaked in shadows, but I could see enough to make out a pale face, dark eyes watching me with intensity. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, gripping the knife tightly. The figure took a step forward, and I instinctively took a step back. "You shouldn't be in these woods at this hour." The voice was steady, but I could hear a hint of urgency beneath the calm. "It's not safe." "What do you mean?" My brain raced, desperately trying to make sense of this encounter. "Is it the creature?" A faint nod answered me. "Yes, but more than that, those who come here at night often don't leave." My heart raced. The growl, the odd whispers, the sensation of being watched, it all rushed back in vivid detail. "But I was looking for my friend Mark. We got separated." "Then you need to leave," the figure insisted, stepping closer to the light. I could see their features more clearly now. A young woman, perhaps my age, with tangled hair and dirt-smudged skin. She looked worn, like she had been out here too long. "Where is Mark?" I pressed. "Can you help me find him?" The woman shook her head, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "Mark is gone," she said quietly. "There's something else in these woods, something that preys on those who dare to wander after dark." Panic rushed through me. "What are you talking about?" We heard a whistle, and then I paused, remembering the melody that had pulled me in. The whistling felt wrong now. It felt like a trap. What was that? Her expression hardened. "A call, it lures people deeper into the forest. You're lucky you didn't follow it too far." I instinctively took a step back. "So, what do we do? How do we get out of here?" Before she could answer, the air shifted. A low growl rumbled again, closer this time. Her eyes widened and she grabbed my arm. "We have to go, now!" We darted away from the light, plunging back into the shadows. The darkness seemed to close in behind us. I could hear the creature moving through the brush, chasing us. "Split up," she shouted suddenly. "It might hesitate if it sees only one of us." "Are you crazy?" I protested, but I could see the determination in her eyes. "Just do it." With no time to argue, I turned to my left, sprinting into the thick trees. I could hear her footsteps pounding away in the opposite direction, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could both escape. But just as I rounded a massive oak, something crashed behind me. I whipped around and caught a glimpse of it. A shadowy form, ghastly and enormous, crashing through the brush, its eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. I felt my chest tighten. There was no more time to think. I ran harder, breathless and panicked, knowing whatever was chasing me was closer than ever. Then I stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood another strange, illuminated object. I couldn't ignore the pull it had on me, but fear surged within me. Was it another trap? I risked a look back. The creature was gaining, its growls worsening, echoing through the night. That's when I realized I had no choice. With every ounce of strength, I raced to the object, hoping it might hold the answers or the salvation I desperately needed. I reached the glowing object, and without thinking, I dropped to my knees beside it. The light pulsed softly, bathing the clearing in a beacon of warmth. Even though fear still wrapped around me, the glow pulled me in, soothing the edges of my panic. I could feel the creature's presence closing in, the growling intensifying, snapping at my heels. "What are you?" I gasped. The object was too strange to fully comprehend. It looked like a small stone slab, etched with the same symbols I had seen on the trees before, symbols that now felt almost alive. As the light dimmed momentarily, I could see shadows moving in the corners of the clearing. I was running out of time. Desperate, I reached out, tracing my fingers over the etchings. Suddenly, the whistling returned, rising up around me until it enveloped me entirely. It was louder than I remembered, almost melodic, washing over me like a tide. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out, but then I felt a tug. The edges of my consciousness began to unravel, almost as if the light was pulling me in. "Mark!" I shouted, hoping to summon my friend from wherever he was. And then I heard it. A faint response somewhere in the distance, layered in the symphony of whispers and calls. "Here, help me." "Mark!" I shouted again, eyes snapping open. The glowing object's light flickered brighter, and in that moment I made a decision. I had to let it guide me. Trust that this was more than just an enigma. I grabbed the object tightly. The glow intensified, blinding everything for a moment. The low growl turned into a shriek, unearthly, filled with rage. Then my world erupted in chaos. It was as if the forest came alive. Branches seemed to reach for me in a frenzy, some even snapping as the creature rushed by. I turned and bolted toward the sound of Mark's voice, the rhythmic pulsing of the light guiding me like a compass. Each step felt heavy. Fear clung to my heels, urging me to go faster. The air crackled around me, each breath sharper. I could hear the growl fading into the background, a desperate echo. "Mark!" I cried. My pulse quickened as I pushed through the trees, and there he was, sitting against a tree, his face pale and eyes wide. Relief washed over me, but it was tinged with terror. The creature had not given up its hunt. "Quick!" I shouted, holding out the glowing object. In the fading light I saw the shadows deepen, feel their malevolence. The ground rattled as the beast reappeared, but it hesitated at the threshold of the light, growling in frustration. "Grab this!" I yelled, and Mark reached for it, confusion in his eyes transforming to understanding as he gripped it tightly. "What do we do?" It's protecting us," I gasped. "We just need to focus on leaving. We can't let it take us." As if it heard me, the creature lunged, snapping its jaws, but the light seemed to push back, forcing the shadows to retreat. There was something powerful in the pulsing glow, a barrier between us and the darkness. "Go!" I shouted, and together we took off, sprinting as fast as our legs could carry us. The path ahead glimmered under the light's reach, the chorus of whispers spiraling beneath our feet. I felt the terror lurking behind us, but it was dimming now, choking on the light's strength. The details of our escape faded into a blur, the branches tearing at our clothes, the wild sound of the creature's frustrations behind us. Then, without warning, we broke through a thicket, bursting into clear moonlight spilling into a meadow. The creature's growl echoed one last time before silence fell, the shadows receding like a tide. We collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, the weight of everything finally settling. The night felt different outside those woods, lighter somehow. I still clutched the glowing object tightly, looking at Mark, whose wide eyes mirrored my own disbelief. "What was that?" he panted, looking back toward the trees. "I don't know," I replied, emotion cracking my voice. "But we made it out. We actually made it." The glow of the object dimmed, flickering feebly in my hand. I looked at it, flooded with questions. Why did it help? What had we encountered? But before I could voice another word, a long whistle echoed in the distance, from the edge of the trees. My heart sank. I shivered as I registered the sound, a reminder that some things might never leave us no matter how far we ran. The echo of that innocent tune haunted the edges of my mind. As the stars began to blanket the sky, I held on to the knowledge that we had escaped for now, unsure of what lessons this night had to teach, only that something ancient lingered in the shadows, waiting for the next unwitting traveler. And as I looked back at the trees, I knew, deep down, that I would never truly forget the night the wood sang.